Hi, I'm Anja Jairo Paglas from BMLS 2A. In this video, we will talk about Ferdinand E. Marcos. So first, who was President Ferdinand E. Marcos? President Ferdinand Edrelin Marcos is a Philippine lawyer and a politician. During his time as President of the Philippines from 1966 to 1986, he built an authoritarian administration. He is known to be a nationalist ruler who ushered in an age of political persecution and bloodshed and regarded as the corrupt and dictatorial. His wife Imelda Marcos, a former beauty pageant winner who became a dominant figure when martial control was instituted in 1976, helped him gain and maintain the president by the virtue of her charisma and through immense riches, political connection, and military strength. Marcos served in the military during World War II. Manuel Rojas, the first president of the independent Philippine Republic, employed Marcos as a technical assistant from 1946 to 1947. From 1946 to 1959, he served in the House of Representatives. From 1959 to 1965, he served in the Senate, where he was Senate President from 1963 to 1965. When Marcos failed to win the nomination for president in 1965, he decided to leave the Liberal Party created by Manuel Rojas. He then campaigned for president as the Nationalist Party nominee against Diosdado Macapagal, the Liberal president. On December 30, 1965, Marcos was declared as the president of the Philippines. He was re-elected in 1969, making him the first Philippine president to serve a second term in office. He had achieved advancement in agriculture, industry, and education during his first time in office. However, the rising number of protests and violent urban guerrilla action concerned his government later. Martial law is a type of legislation that is enforced by the military rather than a civilian administration, usually to restore order. It entails temporarily substituting military authority for civilian government and is typically used during times of war, rebellion, or natural catastrophe. For good reason, it is a rare and significant choice for civilian administration to undertake. Under our laws, Article 7, Section 18 of the 1987 Constitution enables the President of the Republic to proclaim martial law in any area of the Philippines for a duration of no more than 60 days unless extended by the Congress in circumstances of insurrection and invasion when national safety necessitates it. Within 48 hours following declaring martial law, the President must give a report to Congress either in person or in writing. If the Congress is not in session, it must meet in line with its procedure within 24 hours of the proclamation of martial law. To emphasize, when martial rule is imposed, civil rights such as the right to free movement, free expression, and protection from excessive search are suspended. A military justice system such as the military tribunal replaced the traditional judicial system that deals with criminal and civil law matters. Civilians may be detained for breaching curfews or for action that would not be considered serious enough to justify custody in regular circumstances. Law pertaining to habeas corpus that are intended to prevent wrongful imprisonment may also be suspended, allowing the military to detain civilians indefinitely without recourse. Given that the treatment consequences of declaring martial rule on a country and its inhabitants, imposing martial law is always the last solution, reserved for situations in which law and order are swiftly deteriorating. What were the pros and cons of the martial law? declared by former President Marcos. Former President Marcos declared martial law in September 1972, claiming that it was the last line of defense against the rising condition marked by increasing violent student protests, the alleged communist insurgents threat caused by the new Communist Party of the Philippines or the CPP and the Muslim separatist movement of the Moro National Liberation Front or MNLF. The declaration of martial law and had both negative and positive consequences on the population and nation. During the years of martial law, both the wealthy and the poor were disciplined. The wealthy, especially the oligarchs, who exploit, oppress, and committed all forms of social injustice against the citizen, were disciplined through vast social development and change, including land reforms, labor decrees, including the labor law, and the administration practice of eminent dominance and enforced law to break the monopolies by landed estate by the ruling classes who engage in multiple unfair labor practices. Numerous social changes were enacted under Marcos' regime, particularly in the form of labor regulation and social legislation. The poor, on the other hand, were also disciplined. A curfew has been enforced. The children did not roam around at night like they do nowadays. Work was at the forefront of the curriculum. Students were trained accordingly and not spoon-fed. To support the Green Revolution, the young and elderly were obliged to plant trees while government personnel were required to do rural duty. People were advised to keep their community clean and to be cognizant of communal sanitation. Nobody could urinate or defecate any place. People were raised to be environmentally conscious. On the contrary, the media was shut down when Marcos imposed martial law. According to Jose Santos and Melanie Penlaak on the website of the Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility or CMRF, media fractioners and opposing figures who denounced Marcos were detained in military camp. As stipulated by the Department of Public Information or the DPI, all media outlets must first request authorization from them. Marcos also issued a presidential decree forbidding anybody from undermining the integrity of the government through print or even simply having pamphlets about it. Everything was subjected to censorship. According to the Manila Times, around 2005 7 people were slain under martial law. Military murder was the pinnacle of violence under Marcos, with 3,257 people slain, estimated 35,000 tortured, and 70,000 detained. Prominent opponents including late Senator Ninoy Aquino, Jose Diokno, Lorenzo Tada, and Juanito Salonga were also arrested at that time. Aquilo Nene Pimentel Jr., the former Senate President, was also imprisoned. Moreover, despite advancement in agriculture and industry during martial law, labor wage decreased, few farmers profited from land reforms, and the sugar sector was in disarray. The significant drop in sugar prices in the early 1980s, combined with lower prices and decreased demand for coconuts and coconut products, traditionally the country's most important export commodity, exacerbated the country's economic grief, forcing the government to borrow substantial amount of money from the international banking community. Reports of rampant corruption began to surface with increasing frequency. Based on all the data I have accumulated, I conclude that drawbacks outweigh the advancement. Martial law under Marcos is remembered as one of the worst eras in the Philippine history. We must learn from martial law and live the lesson that it should never be repeated. Whatever occurs, may we, the Filipinos, always choose to respect, protect, and promote our freedom. Wassalam.